We have liftoff.
This rocket was just revealed in China. The bare steel, the flaps, the engines, it looks exactly like Starship. There is just one problem with that sentence. Almost none of it is what it seems. Over the past few months, headline after headline has announced the same thing. China has built a copy of Starship, a rocket identical to the most powerful machine the American company has ever made. And the pictures are uncanny. The same bare metal skin, the same fins, the same blunt, bullet-shaped nose. But here is what almost none of those headlines tell you. There is no single rocket. What has actually been revealed is three completely different things by three different companies. And only one of them is real metal you could walk up and touch. One is a cartoon. One is a tower with no rocket. And one is a 70-meter machine being welded together right now in central China. Lumping all three under one headline, China's Starship, is how you end up either terrified or dismissive. Both reactions are wrong. To understand what China has really built, you have to take them apart one at a time and ask of each the only question that matters. Does it actually fly, or does it just look the part? Start with the one that looks the most perfect because it is the least real. A Beijing startup unveiled a rocket it calls, with no subtlety whatsoever, Starship One, and visually it is a flawless copy. The forward flaps, the rear flaps, the grid fins, every line in exactly the place the Americans put them. The company bills it as a fully reusable, AI-powered rocket with a first flight promised in 2027. There is just one detail missing from the announcement: the rocket. It does not exist. There is no tank, no engine, no steel. Only a render, a gorgeous piece of computer animation. In a brutally competitive scramble for investor money, a picture that looks exactly like Starship sends a message. We understand where all of this is going. Investors here are not buying hardware, they are buying a story, and there is no faster way to tell that story than to show them a rocket that already looks like the winner. It is the aerospace equivalent of a movie poster for a film that has not been shot. Stunning to look at, and, for now, completely weightless. So set it aside. The real story is being welded somewhere else. About 1,000 kilometers to the south, in Hunan province, a very different startup is doing the unglamorous version. Early this year, it rolled out its first full-scale hardware, a 70-meter-tall first stage built from bare stainless steel, the same material and the same philosophy as Starship. This is not a render, it is real metal on a real stand. And shortly after the reveal, the company raised 500 million yuan to pay for static fire tests and to prove out its recovery system. To manage the welding, it brought in metal experts from China's high-speed rail industry, and late last year, it ran a ground test of a 100-ton class version of the very tower catch arms the Americans made famous. Its leadership is refreshingly blunt about what they are doing. One of the founders said on the record that they do not shy away from copying the American company, that a good technical route will resonate across the whole industry. No pretense of lone genius. They watched what worked, and they are building it. So this is the rocket the title is really about. Not the cartoon, but the steel. And the question is no longer whether it looks like Starship. It is how much of Starship is actually under the skin. This is where exactly like starts to come apart. On the surface, the match is real, bare stainless steel, where almost every other rocket uses aluminum, chosen, the company admits, because steel costs 1/10 as much, even though it is heavier. Engines that burn methane and oxygen, the same fuel Starship runs on. And a plan to catch the returning booster with tower arms, the very trick the Americans pioneered. 3 genuine points of convergence. But then look at the numbers. Starship is 9 meters across. This rocket is barely 4, less than half the width. Starship is designed to haul 100 to 150 tons to orbit and fly itself home. This one targets about 10, 1/10 the payload. Its engines run on a simpler, older cycle, nothing like the record-breaking pressures inside the American machines. And the dramatic flaps, the feature that makes Starship look like a falling skydiver. On the real hardware, they are mostly gone. So, what is it, really? Strip away the steel skin, and underneath sits something far more familiar. A copy, not of Starship, but of the company's smaller, older workhorse rocket, wearing Starship's clothes. Even the American company's founder said as much, noting they had bolted Starship's materials onto an older design. and that the real Starship was, in his words, in another league. And that raises a question worth pausing on. Of all the things to copy, why these three? Why steel, methane, and the catch, and not, say, the flaps or the sheer size? Because those three are not styling choices. They are physics. Steel is dramatically cheaper than aerospace aluminum and shrugs off the heat of re-entry far better, which is exactly why the Americans switched to it and why the copycats followed. Methane burns clean, without the greasy soot that older rocket fuels bake into an engine's plumbing. And a clean engine is one you can fly again next week instead of tearing apart. And the tower catch lets a rocket leave its heavy landing legs on the ground, squeezing out more payload. Each of those is a hard-won answer that took years and fortunes to find. The Chinese startups did not have to find them. They could read the answer straight off the back of someone else's test flights and start from there. That is the real shortcut. Not a stolen blueprint, but a finished exam to copy from. Then there is the catch. The single most futuristic thing the Americans do is reach out with two giant mechanical arms and pluck a falling booster clean out of the air. No landing legs, no parachute, just the tower catching the rocket. It looks like science fiction, and another Beijing company is chasing it head-on. They have built a full tower with the catching arms and run the capture tests on the ground. The clamps closing, the mechanism working, all without a rocket in the air. It is real engineering. But two cautions. First, a catch tower with nothing to catch is only half the problem. The hard part is a rocket falling out of the sky and hitting that tower with perfect precision, and that they have not done. And second, despite chasing Starship's most iconic move, their rocket is not even steel. It is aluminum, chosen to save weight. So even the company most obsessed with copying the catch has quietly walked away from copying the rocket. Now, none of this means China is only making cartoons and tower props. Two companies have actually put steel in the sky. One launched a 57-ton stainless test rocket 2.5 kilometers over the sea, shut its engine down in flight, relit it, and set it down in a controlled splashdown. A genuine, difficult piece of flying. The company behind that test is now aiming to reach actual orbit by the end of this year, which would be a genuine leap. Another firm, the most established private rocket maker in the country, and widely seen as China's nearest thing to a working reusable workhorse, sent a test vehicle on a 10-kilometer hop and brought it back down. These are real milestones. They prove the avionics work, that the engines can restart in midair, that the software can fly a rocket back to the ground. But notice where they sit on the ladder. A short hop straight up and back is a very long way from orbit. Not one of these companies has flown a reusable steel rocket to orbital speed and then survived the fiery, 25 times the speed of sound plunge back through the atmosphere that comes after. That last rung, reaching orbit and surviving the heat of coming home from it, still belongs to exactly one company on Earth. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If these rockets look so much like Starship, did someone simply steal the design? Here, the honest answer matters. Just 2 days ago, a major investigative report revealed something startling. While the American company was still private, between 2018 and 2021, investors tied to Chinese military contractors quietly bought small stakes in it, routed through an American middleman firm so the money's origin stayed hidden. One Beijing venture capitalist near the center of it had put in millions, and his firm also funds China's Starship copycats and has partnered with a Chinese government science ministry. Two of the satellite ventures that same firm had backed were already under US sanctions. Under American arms export law, foreign money inside a rocket company draws intense scrutiny, precisely because Washington fears that even a minority stake can be used to gather non-public technical insight. The American company was clearly worried about exactly this. When it went public this past June, it barred Chinese and Hong Kong investors entirely. But here is the crucial distinction. There is no evidence anyone stole a blueprint or a single engine design. And the truth is, they would not need to. You can watch Starship fly on a live stream. You can see that it is made of steel. Watch the flaps move. Watch the tower catch the booster. The shape is not a secret. It is broadcast to the whole world. What China is doing is not the theft of a drawing. It is watching the answer and then spending billions to reverse engineer the math behind it. And that is the real gap, the one no render can hide. Building one of these rockets is staggeringly hard. Because the steel walls are thinner than a millimeter, The Hunan company has to weld them almost by hand, borrowing experts from China's high-speed rail industry. A single 15-meter seam can take 5 hours, and a complete airframe takes 20 skilled workers 2 months. Compare that to the American company, which stamps out 9-meter steel rings in a matter of days on an automated line. That single contrast, 5 hours for one seam versus a machine turning out rings by the day, is the entire race in miniature. The American company is not just ahead on the rocket, it is ahead on the factory that builds the rocket. China sees the gap and is pouring concrete to close it. One firm is building a 5 billion yuan superfactory meant to turn out 25 reusable rockets a year. The state's own giant, methane-fueled, fully reusable rocket is coming too, but not until the 2030s. So here is the honest verdict. China has revealed rockets that look exactly like Starship, and that resemblance is real, deliberate, and openly admitted. But looking like Starship and being Starship are separated by the single hardest problem in spaceflight, actually flying one to orbit and bringing it home through fire. China is building the skin. The only question that matters now is how long until it builds the engine underneath. And that race has already begun.